الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless you and bless your gathering. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to walk away from this gathering with a knowledge that is of benefit to us, inshallah, in this world as well as in the next. Ameen. The hadith known as the hadith of Ma'bad is a very well-known hadith narrated by Al-Imam Al-Hakim in his Mustadrak, and it was narrated by her brother. Her name, Ma'bad, her name is Atika bintu Khuwaylid. Difference of narration, whether that is her father is Khalid or Khuwaylid, and her brother is Hubaysh ibn Khalid or Khuwaylid. And he's the one who narrates this incident that happened to his sister Atika or Ma'bad. Ma'bad is actually the kunya. To put you in the picture on a timeline as to when this incident happened is when the Prophet ﷺ is planning to escape Mecca after Quraysh had literally set a ransom, literally, and put a bounty rather over the head of the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, dead or alive. Anybody who would bring them to Quraysh, dead or alive, for each one of them, they would pay 100 camels. And that is quite a hefty prize. So you can imagine just how bounty hunters are all over the place looking for the Prophet ﷺ. Now the Prophet ﷺ is planning to leave with Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Remember these names? Abu Bakr as-Siddiq is his best friend and the first person to embrace Islam with him. Then the free slave of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq by the name of Amir ibn Fuhayra, and he was the one to assist Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and the Prophet ﷺ in the escape. Also, they need to have a guide, somebody who is not Muslim, he's a polytheist, yet a person with integrity and very trustworthy person, but above it all, he was an expert when it comes to carving paths in the desert at any direction. Very well expert. Something that you and I can refer to as a GPS pinpointing of very specific places. This is how well he was versed in regards to the intricacies of the desert. So that person's name is Abdullah ibn Urayqit, and he was not even a Muslim. So these four set the plan to escape Mecca. And then on their way, they came to a camp of this old woman, this lady by the name of Ma'bad. It is said on a journey, everybody who is taking the route heading to Medina from Mecca, they usually would pass by her camp. And it is literally in a desolate area. Now, the tribe of this woman is a tribe known as Khuza'a. Very important to know all of these tribes, and being that the peninsula is a tribal area. Everything is run by tribes. At one point, Khuza'a was far more dominant and more powerful than Quraysh. But over time, Khuza'a was literally pushed out of Mecca, while for a while, Khuza'a was the one dominating the area and the one running Mecca at one point. But Quraysh pushed him out. Of course, power shift and all. But Khuza'a stayed powerful on the outskirts of Mecca. and that's where her territory is. It was outside Mecca. This is why when the Prophet ﷺ was leaving, he came to her camp. But at that time, subhanallah, it was a hard time for the whole area. Drought, famine, to the point that animals don't have any grazing land. They're very skinny, and very, very tough time for everyone. And she was, subhanallah, a very generous person, and so is her husband. And what they did is, with the little that they have, they used to set camp for travelers and wayfarers, meaning those who are passing through that are broke, they don't have any means to continue their journey. They would usually sit and settle to rest for a little bit at her camp without asking any compensation in return. This is just the generosity and the mannerism that the Bedouins used to have, subhanallah. And when the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq again, Amir ibn Fuhayra, Abdullah ibn Urayqit, all four of them arrived to her camp, the Prophet ﷺ approached her and asked whether she has any milk or meat that they could pay for as they will continue their journey. She says, by Allah, if I had any, I would have offered it without anything in return. And then the Prophet ﷺ asked about her husband, and she said he went grazing our skinny sheep and goats that we have. And then he looked over to a corner in her tent, and he says, what about that goat? She says, by Allah, she can't even stand. And she was a very skinny, tiny little animal, and could not even keep up with the rest of the herd to leave the tent. That's why they left her in. The Prophet ﷺ asked Ma'bad, and pay attention to the miraculous, subhanallah, barakah of the Prophet ﷺ's presence. He said, do you mind if I milk it? She says, by all means, do so, but squeezing her udder is not going to give you any milk. The Prophet ﷺ approached that goat, and then he wiped over her udder, and he said, Bismillah, and made dua. And subhanallah, the milk just completely inflated her udder. And the Prophet ﷺ asked for a container, and she brought him the biggest container she had. The Prophet ﷺ milked the goat himself to the point that it topped that container. And he started with Ma'bad, the lady, that she was very generous, but she's dealing with a human being unlike anyone else. He started with her, and then she drank to her fill. And then the Prophet ﷺ handed over to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, and then Abdullah ibn Urayqat and Amir ibn Fuhayra. And then he was the last one to drink, alayhi salatu wasalam. And when he finished drinking, he went for a second time, milked that goat, and filled up the container. And then he handed over to Ma'bad, and he says, this is for you. And then they left. Her husband comes back, and he noticed that there is milk, and the skinny goat, it looks healthy and has milk. And he says, what is this blessed thing that I see around our camp? What happened? She said, wallahi, there is nothing except that there was a blessed man, and this is what happened, and this is what happened, and this is what happened. She told him about the event of what happened. And he said, why don't you describe him for me? And this is here where Ma'bad starts describing the Prophet ﷺ. Although she had only seen him for a very small, short moment, yet her description is historically recorded as being one of the most beautiful and most eloquent description ever given to the Prophet ﷺ. There are so many of the companions also that describe the Prophet ﷺ. But her way of describing is very beautiful and unique. And it is important for us as Imam Taha said, it is so, it's such a blessing on the level of our thought, as well as in the level of our iman, when we're dealing with much of the aspects of the religion that the Prophet ﷺ left for us as a treasure for us to benefit from, for us to put that with the beautiful person that we need to know some of his characteristics, والسلام, as well as his physical and outward features. So she starts on by saying, I saw a man. She said, رأيت رجلا ظاهر الوضاءة. And keep this, pay attention to her words. Very concise, yet very comprehensive and very descriptive. She says, remarkable in cleanliness, and he is striking in appearance. For somebody who's been traveling for a while, his appearance is so clean and striking. She says, أبلج الوجه. His face is radiant, luminous face of the Prophet ﷺ. حسن الخلق, beautiful creation and beautifully created عليه الصلاة والسلام. She said, لم تعبه ثجلة. He says his belly wasn't protruding, and meaning that he doesn't, his belly is not bulging past his chest, doesn't have a belly عليه الصلاة والسلام. ولم تزر به صعلة, nor his head is disproportionate and small, rather perfect size of his head عليه الصلاة والسلام. Wasim, handsome and finely made عليه الصلاة والسلام, delicate in the way he looks عليه الصلاة والسلام, his physical handsomeness عليه الصلاة والسلام. Qasim, he was perfectly proportioned when it comes to all of his body limbs عليه الصلاة والسلام. في عينه دعج, there was a contrast in his eyes, the color of his eyes. And the contrast in a different description by some of the Sahaba, they said that the whiteness is intensely white, and then the blackness in his eyes is intensely black. Complete contrast between the black and white. وفي أشفاره وطف, and his long, his eyelashes are long and dark, as if he had applied kuhl to his eyes, but those are just the natural long black color to his eyelashes عليه الصلاة والسلام. وفي صوته صهل, and this is incredible. She says that there is a sharpness to his and clarity to his voice, yet it has a natural echo that you hear in his voice. Does not pretend to have an echo, but it is a natural echo combined with clarity and also, subhanallah, sharpness in his sound. وَفِي عُنُقِهِ سَطَعٌ, and his neck was elegantly long but elegant neck عليه الصلاة والسلام. وفي لحيته كثافة, and he had a full and a thick beard عليه الصلاة والسلام, dark, thick and full beard, even towards when he is about to die sallallahu alayhi wasallam at the age of 63. The Sahaba said, we only counted between 14 and 20 gray hairs in his beard, and most of it was under his lower lip and towards his burns, alayhi salatu wasalam, to the side. But his whole beard, even at the age of 63, is full and completely black, alayhi salatu wasalam. And she continues to say in Athaj, when it comes to his eyebrows, they create their arching, but they are also, they have such volume. They're not light. They have such a volume and dark. And then as though they look as though they are connected, yet there is a separation between them. They're not connected in the middle. And she continues to say, أقرن. They're not connected. Those eyebrows are not connected. In samata. And now she continues to speak about the way he carries himself, alayhi salatu wasalam. After she described the way he looks, his features, physical outward features, alayhi salatu wasalam, she goes on now to describe the way he carries himself, his characteristics. She says, in samata fa'alayhi al-waqar. When he is quiet, dignity covers him, alayhi salatu wasalam. He is covered in glory, honor, and respect. This is when he is quiet. وَإِذَا تَكَلَّمَ سَمَاهُ وَعَلَاهُ الْبَهَاء. But when he speaks, he was audible. You can hear what he's saying. And what he says is beautiful and it is clear, almost commanding and overtaking the way when he speaks. You don't want to hear anything else. You have your complete attention is taken by him when he speaks, alayhi salatu wasalam. أجمل الناس وأبهاهم من بعيد. From afar, if you see him from afar, alayhi salatu wasalam, he is the most striking and outstanding in appearance, beautiful from afar. وأحلاهم وأحسنهم من قريب. And when he comes near, alayhi salatu wasalam, he's the most handsome of the bunch, and also in cleanliness when he is up close, when he is up close to you, alayhi salatu wasalam. حلو المنطق. When he speaks, such exalted and sweet and coherently magical way of speech when he speaks, alayhi salatu wasalam. Very, very beautiful when he speaks, alayhi salatu wasalam. And smooth and easy to understand. حلو المنطق. Whenever you hear him talk, you don't want him to stop because his speech is so sweet, eloquent, magically worded, alayhi salatu wasalam, in his speech. فصل لا نزر ولا هذر. She says, his speech is always to the point, not too excessive, not too much talking, nor too short. Very to the point, alayhi salatu wasalam. كأن منطقه خرزات نظم يتحذرن. She says, his utterance of words, the way he speaks and the way he words his thoughts and his sentences, they were as if jewels coming out of a necklace, calculated, polished, one after the other, like the beads of a necklace falling. This is how his words came out. They came out perfectly and coherently, and order flowing magically out of his mouth, alayhi salatu wasalam. Rab'a, when it comes to his size. She says, medium in height. And Rab'a in Arabic, it's a very, very explicit and very descriptive word. The word alone, it means two things, a combination rather of two things. He is neither a person that you have to strain too much to look at him, to look up. You have to look up and strain your neck to look at him. Nor is it hard for you to look so down so you can look at him. But he is, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, instead, he was a comfortable sight to look at, right at the eyesight for anybody that is talking to him, alayhi salatu wasalam. Lahu rufaqa. Now she moves on to describe his company, those around him. She said, له رفقاء يحفون به. He had friends surrounding him, working to serve and protect him. إن قال سمعوا لقوله. When he speaks, they would hearken, they would listen closely and attentively to what he says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And وإن أمر تبادروا إلى أمره. And when he commands, they would compete to fulfill his command, alayhi salatu wasalam. Mahfudun mahshud. He is, alayhi salatu wasalam, dignified, respected, alayhi salatu wasalam. La abis wala mufannad. La abis, without a frown. Not the type that gives a frown when you look at him. Wala mufannad. Nor is he the type that you don't want around you. His presence is heavy on the heart. Rather, a person that is so beloved in his presence, and his presence has dignity, and it emits love and radiance out of him, alayhi salatu wasalam. And this is the end of Ma'bad. Look her words. She said at the end, ما رأيت رجلا قبله ولا بعده مثله. She says, I have never seen any man before him or after him like him, alayhi salatu wasalam. Never did she ever encounter any human being, not before, not after, somebody like him, alayhi salatu wasalam. And that was the description of Ma'bad to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And I will leave it right here, inshallah ta'ala. And hopefully those words will give you a little bit of image in your heart and mind about the person of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, some of his outward characteristics, some of his mannerism, alayhi salatu wasalam, as well as the way he treats others around him, alayhi salatu wasalam. وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد والحمد لله رب العالمين.